turn the TV off at 9 o'clock.
Hang on, let me just mute everybody.
I usually do. 9:30.
Hi, and welcome everybody to Transformational Tuesdays. I'm Teresa Velardi. I'm just going to plug in here. I'm your host for this time of inspiration, education, motivation, and conversation focused on key ingredients necessary to create positive change in our lives, which is commonly called transformation. So if you are seeing me or hearing the sound of my voice, you are already in a transformational conversation. And everybody, from 1 minute to the next, life is always changing, so we are all transforming. And I'm excited today to have Duane Cummings with us. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to dance a little bit about the topic of transformation, if you will. And before we get started, I just want to remind everyone of a couple of things. We have all the replays to Transformational Tuesdays on transformationaltuesdays.com/replays. You can feel free to go there and download any of the audios, watch any of the videos. I think we have 6 or 8 videos on the site itself, and the rest are housed on our YouTube channel, so you can go there and watch them and see all of the guests that we have brought to the show and will continue to bring to the show. Also, I want to remind everybody that the 2 audios for What's Your Story are up there, and if you have a story that you want to share in the gratitude book that's upcoming, it's going to be a daily book of gratitude. It's called Daily Gift of Gratitude. You can go to YourStoryMattersNow.com and find out all the details about that. So I am really excited about this conversation today and to have Duane Cummings with us. I met Duane, oh my goodness, I don't know how long ago, but it's been some time now. And he's one of those people that is magnetic. His smile and his attitude are just something that draws people in. So a little bit about Duane. He lives life with a single purpose: to aid others, act on ideas, and to achieve sensational results. He is the current CEO and founder of the Sensational Group, LLC, and is a trusted advisor to organizations and individuals around the world regarding professional and personal development. Duane is an author, entrepreneur, coach, and consultant who speaks regularly on a range of topics that include leadership, communication, sales, and finding your purpose. And for our conversation today, we're going to talk about transformation. Welcome, Duane. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much, Teresa. It's great to see your face because we talk, but I don't get to see you in person as much as I used to.
I know. It's been a while since I've seen you. One of those hugs is in the works for the next time I see you.
Here all virtually.
Yeah. Thank you. I love it. So, Duane, I invited you to come to the call because you are someone who is one person at a time making a difference in the world. And yes, you are a consultant to many groups of people. And I met you through the Women's Prosperity Network. And you are in alignment with their purpose of helping women to reach their best. So that being said, let's talk about how you actually define transformation and how the work that you do plays into that.
Wow. How I define it. So I'm not up on Merriam-Webster's definition.
I am.
But my guess is there's a bunch of different ones depending on whether noun, verb, whether it's transformation, transformational, etc. But one of the ways that I think transformation happens is incremental steps to go from something here to something drastically different. Mm-hmm. So a transformation is not, clipping your fingernails or changing the color of your nail polish, or, that's not a transformation. A transformation would be, really external and internal combined, and a big shift, to where, you know, if it's physical, somebody almost doesn't recognize you. If it's spiritual, you've had an awakening or aha moment. And then, you know, if it's educational or mental, you went from a place of unknowing to a place of knowing. You know, so transformation is, I guess my definition, extreme, noticeable difference from point A to point B.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Is that congruent with what you would say, kind of, or not?
Yeah, that would, I would say that, yeah, it is a noticeable difference. I love that you put in extreme, because I think that people generally do not consider the small things a transformational process. I think that, yes, we can change a little thing here and there, which transformation is actually defined as change. I can tell you what Webster's does say, because I joke around about the fact that I am a word nerd. And that I have an ongoing relationship with Webster's dictionary.
Right, that's a good thing.
Yeah, so what Webster says is transformation is an act, process, or instance of transforming or being transformed, and the operation of changing. So transformation is something, whether it's one step at a time, but it's most noticeable in people's lives in all the areas that you pointed out when it is extreme. So I'm in agreement with your definition. So how would you say that the work that you're doing through your individual consulting and coaching has transformed some lives of people that are around you? I know you recently have gone through your own transformation. You've made a physical transformation, and let's talk about some of the transformations that are happening in and around you.
Yeah, interestingly enough, you said it, you know, incremental change. I think what happens with people is, you know, unless you're away from something or absent from it, you don't see how big a transformation it is. Because, you know, for me, for instance, I shed about 50 pounds.
Wow.
Which, you know, I usually carry up here like I'm storing nuts for the winter. And, you know, I wasn't as fit as I used to be. And so if somebody was with me every day, they might not have said the words transformation. They might have said, you know, hey, you've been working on your fitness, or I see you're making some changes, because it's so incremental. You don't see somebody lose an ounce. You see them lose 10 pounds.
Right.
So I think a lot of times for people to recognize transformation, they have to be distanced from something for a while, or they have to know where the starting point was and where the ending point is. And, you know, lots of transformations in my life. I think you asked a couple of questions there. The one that most people would notice probably is physical, because, you know, now we're getting ready to be grandparents, and I wanted to make sure I was fit enough to play and throw the ball in the yard and keep up at Disney World and all those things. So Kim and I have been swimming and riding every day. And for people that see us, you know, in our neighborhood or family, they really can't see the transformation. But somebody that hasn't seen me in 6 months, they might not even hardly recognize me.
Yeah.
And then as I've been out in the world, what's been interesting is, you know, there's a lot of people that are in my life that were in my life when I was in, you know, 4th grade and middle school and high school, and players that I coached 20 years ago. And they would actually say that I haven't really transformed a lot, because what they know me as and the things they're looking at are pretty much the same. Like, who I am is not a lot different than who I was then. Where they would say that I've transformed is probably the scale at how I want to affect the world.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be that I just worried kind of about my little neighborhood and my little, you know, clan or clique that's right around me.
Mm-hmm.
And now, you know, I want to transform and help others and serve others on a larger scale.
Talk about that a little bit. What are some of your goals for this world with the work that you do on the transformational process that's involved in making great change one person at a time?
Well, I guess it depends on the project. So today I'll give a shout out to Edu Kenya, because tonight we go to Nashville and we're hanging out with Adam Gould, the founder, and doing some planning for next year. But so in education, doesn't matter whether it's here, Africa, wherever, you know, you spark something in a young child and you get them excited to be a word nerd, like you said, and you get them excited to learn. And then you never know where that seed goes. Like, it could inspire other people. They could become a teacher. 2 generations from now, they could have impacted millions of people. Mm-hmm. So, you know, wherever we go in whatever organization we're involved in, we're definitely trying to help someone make a transformation that allows them to be their best self and get in their sweet spot in life. So if it's giving them access to education, that's one thing. If it's fitness, somewhere else. A lot of people know that I work around and in the speaking industry. A partner of mine, and then there's 12 founding members, are launching the Speakers Guild of America next month.
Nice.
Yeah, so Bob Berg is one of the founding members. I know you know who he is.
Yes.
So in that respect, we want to transform the speaking industry to where it helps speakers, event planners, and attendees. And how we see it today, we don't know how long it will take for that transformation to take place. But we know that every day we'll have to do something incremental to move towards, where maybe 10 years from now, people look around and go like, wow, they disrupted the speaking industry and it's transformed.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about this Speakers Guild, because I think that a lot of people, I know for myself, my transformation really started with a look in the mirror and saying, who are you and why are you here? And those questions. And I talked about those with what's your story and what's your story too. There's two parts, and you find the recordings in Transformational Tuesdays. But I think that once we discover that we want something more, we seek out any and all possibilities that could help us to get to, we may not know exactly where we're going or what we definitely want, but we want us to be in that transformational conversation at things like events where speakers are talking about various ways that we could connect to in order to be able to make that transformation happen. So Bob Berg, just to give people a little bit more information about Bob Berg, he wrote a little book called The Go-Giver. If you've not read it, go read it, because it's an awesome little thing. Be a go-giver. Give to others and put other people first, and be of service to other people, as Duane is, and that's one of the reasons why I like having a conversation with him and Bob Berg. But talk a little bit about the Speakers Guild, because not only are you impacting speakers to be able to get on a platform, but you're also helping attendees to be able to hear the messages that they're looking for. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so for me, I think people need evidence sometimes before they will believe something's possible to make a transformation. So, we're during the Olympics right now. Somebody just set a new world record. That actually will allow someone else to transform, because now they can believe something is possible. And so in the speaking platform, I personally like when people get up there and fillet themselves, tell the good, bad, and indifferent, tell where they started and where they are now, and the transformation that's happened, whether it's in business, personal life, spiritual life, whatever it is, because then it will give an attendee evidence of, oh, I got to see somebody's transformation. I now know it's possible, so I can begin that journey on my own. Nothing against, there's a lot of great speakers out there, and a lot of them are entertaining, but sometimes you walk away from it and you go like, okay, so what did I really get? What's an actionable takeaway? How will that affect my life? And what we're hoping is people can say, oh, I saw a person that was, a single mom with 2 toddlers working 3 jobs, and their story, as you talk about story, their transformation was they became independent, financially okay, emotionally well balanced. They created a great environment, and they achieved and transformed into what they wanted. Because then that tells anybody else that attends that is possible.
Uh-huh.
I think for anybody to transform, you really have to have a belief that it's just possible. You don't set out on a journey thinking, oh, I'm going on this journey to fail. You're hopeful and had that inkling like it's possible.
Right. Exactly.
So speakers really need to, I want speakers to avail themselves, to say, like for me, my story, a lot of people know it. From where I was in the beginning, financially, for instance, to where I am now, huge difference. How I used to be kind of myopic and kind of self-centered versus how I'm, service others now. That's a big transformation. So if I can get up on stage and share that, it empowers other people.
So talk a little bit about that. What sparked that for you, Duane? What happened?
It's exactly what I think we're trying to replicate. I got people that availed themselves, whether it was a couple people on stage. I saw Jim Rohn, like 35 years ago. and that type of person, Zig Ziglar. And I saw, oh, okay, well, there's somebody that's giving me kind of a platform, a path, a blueprint. And then I saw other people that had kind of fallen down in life and gotten back up. And then I had mentors in my life that were definitely willing to share, like, here's where I was in my dark days, and now I'm standing in the light. And to make that transformation, I needed, or I did this, so that's always important. Like, a person can say, I want to make a transformation, but how do they do that? Like, what's the boxes you tick? So I had people in my life that helped me say, here's your first step. The first step is taking the first step, right? So anybody that's on this call has taken the step. They are transforming.
Right.
And then what's the second step and the third step? And then how do you not lose your enthusiasm? Because if your transformation is, self-awareness, you don't become an enlightened Dalai Lama Buddha type person overnight, right? No. So keeping that enthusiasm while you're on that journey. And it's kind of like climbing that mountain. You keep your head down and you walk, and then all of a sudden you look up and you're at the top and you're like, holy cow.
Yeah. And you did it one step at a time.
Yes.
And who's that? Lao Tzu says the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Yeah. And I love that you reference Zig Ziglar, because one of the things that I think that you embody with the work that you do, Duane, is that in order to get what you want, you have to help a lot of people get what they want. And then getting what you want is actually a byproduct of helping other people. So, and I think that you're one of the people that I know that really lives that, that quote that Zig Ziglar talks about. So, also, yeah, it's true. It's true. I've seen you, in groups of people. I've seen you on stage several times, and I also have a heart of service. So what can I do to help other people? And you have a heart of service as well. And I think that connection, we'll talk about connection for a little bit. In order to be able to be connected with someone, heart to heart, soul to soul, purpose to purpose, inspiration to inspiration, because you said, and possibility to possibility, because it's all about knowing that anything is possible. I mean, as a student of the Bible, I know that all things are possible, but we don't necessarily have to do them all by ourselves. We can engage a little help from our friends.
That's right.
So I think that when we connect to people, that allows doors to open that we weren't sure could be there for us in the first place. Even though we know all things are possible, the believing it and having to have some evidence of it are two different things. So from your experience, can you give me an example of each of those two things? Like, I'm sure you come across people who will not do anything until they've seen something that they can, as you talked about a few minutes ago, seen something that they can latch onto, that they know that it's possible. And then there are some people that know in their heart things are possible and need to have the way in order to be able to make it happen. So how do you play into each of those two roles?
Well, I guess I'll start with a second. There are people that have a belief system that anything is possible. And when you have that belief system as kind of your armor and your bedrock, then transformation doesn't scare you as much. You're not as fearful of it. You embrace like the adventure of not knowing what's coming. But the bulk of people, they don't start with that belief that anything is possible, because we're kind of raised to be skeptics and cynical. And as we get older in life, we do less dreaming and we start saying what's not possible. So an example that I'll use firsthand was my wife, who you've met, we've been married almost 30 years. She loves the beach, loves the water, but for whatever reason, she just never learned to swim. I mean, like, she can dog paddle a little bit and all that stuff. And so this summer she said, hey, I want to really learn to swim, and I want to get good at it. I want to learn to snorkel. I want to go scuba diving. She's been on this adventure kick lately. So in our community, we have a community, pool, and she began going, and she got to the point where in a very short period of time, she could do the distance of the pool with one breath underwater, and she's backstroke, and she's doing all these strokes. And what ended up happening was people saw her transformation that know us, like that she went from dog paddling to now, like, not Michael Phelps or Ledecky style yet, but she's holding her own and she's inspiring. So now these other kids in our neighborhood, they saw that transformation. And so there were several children that didn't know how to swim, didn't want to take lessons, that now are like following her lead. And so they've transformed, and they compete to who can go how far underwater with one breath. And so her transformation actually has inspired other people's transformation, you know?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think a lot of people need that because, you know, fear is natural in everybody. And people are afraid to fail sometimes because they define failure as, oh, I didn't make it. And that prevents them from making the big transformation sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. I think that, talk about that for a second, failure, because, you know, John Maxwell talks about a concept of failing forward. And so can you talk to our listeners and our viewers a little bit about that concept? Because I think it's evident in what you just shared.
Yeah, so you probably know because we've talked about it before, but I don't believe in failure per se, because labels really hinder people, in my opinion. And so, you know, in our companies, we changed HR to human engagement and development because HR has a negative connotation. The principle has a negative connotation. The word failure has a negative connotation. Now, he's tried to shift that to where failure is okay, fail forward, learn from it, experience. We in our family just went the exact, like, take it out of the equation. So when my kids were growing up, we scratched it out of the dictionary. We said, you cannot fail unless you just quit, give up on life. All it is an education. Some education is more expensive than others. Some people pay to go to Wharton. Other people lose $50,000 in a business deal. You don't fail. You're just learning. So when you go from a place mentally that you believe anything is possible and you can't fail, transformation typically doesn't scare you. Now you can be purposeful and intentional and say, how do I want to transform and transmogrify? Not how will I respond to my environment and my surroundings? Because people are transforming a lot of times whether they want to or not.
Exactly.
Sometimes they're shaped and molded. So the trick is to be intentional and purposeful and transform in the directions that you want that will be congruent with who you are, keep you in your sweet spot, and hopefully enhance the world around you.
Yeah, I love what you just said, you know, and shaped and molded. As some people don't know, I'm a potter, so I can use the, you know, I shared this a little while ago that, you know, I've got this incredible gift in my hands that I came here with, and it was a gift. And so I asked myself, is this all it's about? Like, is it just about making pretty vases or pretty bowls or whatever, or is there something else in this? And the process of making pottery is a huge illustration for transformation. And something you just said sparked me sharing this, being shaped and molded. So here's the question: when you're in a transformation, like, you have the opportunity to shape and mold that process to look like whatever it is that you want it to look like. I say you can go from a ball of clay to a work of art. So how do you want to look as a piece of art? You know, so that's, what do you want it to look like? How do you want your business to look? How do you want your body to look? What do you want your belief system to look like? It's all part of shaping and molding. And so that sparked that. But I love what you said about there is no failure, there's just learning experiences. And I went and grabbed a quote earlier from Rich Warren, who wrote A Purpose-Driven Life. Mm-hmm. And he says, transformation is a process, and as life happens, there are tons of ups and downs. It's a journey of discovery, and there are moments on the mountaintops and moments in the deep valleys of despair. So that's a transformational life story right there. Have you experienced both sides of that in your life, Duane? Oh,
sure. We've faced the challenges that everyone faces. So financially, you know, we've lost almost $1 million in a day. And physically, I think, you know, my wife was blind for 6 months. So we face those things. I can't give my, you know, sinus infection to my assistant and say, I'm not going to have it today. Or I can't say I'm not going to get a flat tire on the way to the airport. Those things are going to happen. It's how you approach them. And, you know, we talk about gratitude and being grateful in advance. And I think gratitude is a huge portion of transformation, because once you can start learning to be grateful for things, good, bad, or indifferent, and the things that are to come, you kind of free yourself. And you can, that transformational journey can go, like you said, in the direction you want. So the up and down and the discovery, I think that's the fun in all of it. You know, so many times things happen in your life that today you're crying, and 10 years from now you're telling it as a joke to people and laughing about it. So what if you can just speed up that arc and you could laugh about it today? You know, you can find it's cliche to say the silver lining in every dark cloud, but you know, what if you just paused for a moment, you were grateful for whatever lesson you were supposed to be learning on a downtime, and you said, you know what, being down here in the valley, that's okay. That's where the water runs and it's cool and I get some shade, because I know there's going to be a time where I'm on the mountain. And, you know, as an athlete and a past coach, I used to tell my players all the time, when you walk off the field, no one should know the difference between whether you won or lost. It's your responsibility to kind of even that whole peaks and valleys out, you know?
Yeah.
Can I go back to something you mentioned about pottery that I thought was really interesting and made me think?
Absolutely.
So you were talking about shaping it, right? And then, so being purposeful and intentional, you also get to determine what happens with that piece of pottery when you're done. So you can make something that can be shared, or you could hide it in a closet. And if you hide it in a closet, it doesn't inspire anybody. It doesn't make people think. It doesn't make people, you know what's possible. You can also create something that's of service. So you could create theoretically a vase or a pot to carry water, cook in, that kind of thing. And I think our lives are the same way. You know, as we take our ball of clay and we transform, we have to make a decision. Do we keep it to ourselves, or do we do it in a way that serves others and we avail ourselves to others, you know, so that other people can see it? And sometimes people are, during their transformational journey, they hide in a closet. You know, they're afraid of what people are going to say or how they're going to be judged, or what if I don't get to this specific finish line? Don't worry about all that. You know, just begin the journey. I always say, try to start with the end in mind. You know, that's Stephen Covey and other people say that, but you know, pick that journey that you want to take, pick the pot that you want to make or the piece of art you want to make, start molding the clay, get your hands dirty. You know, it's not going to be easy sometimes. It takes work to do what you do, you know, and it takes vision. So you have to have some vision, and then share it, you know, and you know what? Sometimes you're going to break one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or
sometimes you have no control over the fact that it breaks, because there are some imperfections in there that are going to cause it to, when it gets in the fire, things are going to happen, you know, and that stuff like that we don't have control over. But we can do everything we possibly can in order to be able to prepare well for those things not to happen.
Yeah. So you do your best to prepare, you take the journey, and then what happens, you take it as a lesson, whatever that lesson is. So.
Exactly. So, you know, I just had, you said start with the end in mind and mold and shape things the way that you wanted to. And that's sometimes the way that I make pottery. There are also some times when I use, and we're going to talk about the spiritual aspect of transformation here for a second, because I think that when we have intention, and I have this thing on my whiteboard here. I'll read it to you, Duane. I read it every day, and I got this partly from Gina Granberry. You know who Gina is? Yeah. Okay, so I got this partly from her. She would say to me, I'd say, Gina, how are you? And she said, oh, Miss Teresa, I'm fabulous, blessed, and highly favored. I'm sure you are as well. And I was like, I need to adopt that into my life. So here's how I expanded it. Today, I'm fabulous, blessed, highly favored, living in my greatness with passion and purpose, using my gifts and talents, and all of God's great universe is conspiring in my favor.
Yeah, I love it.
When we are purposeful and we are in the moment, know that there is something bigger than ourselves, no matter what you call that, that is actually working with us. So bringing this back to where I started with this whole thing, and molding and shaping and having the end in mind, there are times that we don't know what the end is. There are times that we have to be just in the moment and be present with all that is. Sometimes when I sit down with the clay at the wheel and I'm maybe thinking that I might make a couple of vases or I might make whatever, all of a sudden the clay tells me differently. The situation will dictate something differently, and so I have to conform. So now this piece of clay that I have on the wheel is now going to be a bowl instead of a vase. It's going to be more open to possibilities. So let's talk about transformation during the process where life hands us a curveball, if you will, like what happened with Kim. and her surgery and the loss of her vision for a period of time. Life sometimes throws you a curveball, and we have to do something to conform to, yet hold our integrity and hold our vision and move forward. Let's talk about that standpoint of transformation.
Well, I think first of all, you really have to know in your heart what you believe about things, whether it's spiritually, who you believe you are, what you stand for, your values, etc. Because then, you always have something to fall back on. Like you have the skeleton in your body that's always secure. So as you said, you sit down in front of the clay. Sometimes you don't know where that's going to go. Sometimes you just don't know the end in mind. But what we do know is innately we know the difference in good and bad. For instance, whether it's good and bad for us, good and bad for our children, good and bad for our neighbors. We know what's like, if I'm going to move the needle, if I'm going to take a step, I probably should step in that direction. I don't know where it's going. I don't know what it looks like, but I know that stepping in the other direction is probably not the best choice.
Right.
Right. So even if we can't figure out what the end in mind is, we know innately, like, that's right, that's wrong. So let's go right in every one of those instances. And I think embracing sometimes that there is going to be change that happens that's out of our sight and out of even our lifetime. You talk about the way bamboo grows, it's underground for 5 years before it ever sprouts, and things like that. There are seeds that we are planting in our life through our transformation that we will not get to realize and see the beauty of. You plant a tree for someone else to sit under its shade. And so if you adopt some of that in your beliefs and what you're doing, I think that, you're not so scared along the journey. You're not so worried about, oh man, I've lost sight of my vision for a second. That's okay, because visions change, and where you're going might change. And, I think so many people are concerned about having all the answers. That's really what it comes down to. And I think some of the greatest transformational journeys are not worrying about the answer, is kind of getting lost and finding yourself. In my life, the greatest moments that I can recollect are when I went to the edge somewhere, and not only did I peek over, but I went over as far as I could before I was going to fall. That's where magic really happened. And that's a very scary place to be.
Yeah.
But that's where transformation comes. If you think about the stories of people that, were stuck on Everest and almost died, lost a hand, they come down and they say, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't have my hand, but I was transformed, and now I have a different peace. And, I understand my purpose. And so if you don't ever push yourself in those situations, I don't necessarily know that you can go to new places and transform, in ways that are a surprise, I guess I should say. I love transformational surprises. I love when I meet someone that puts me in a place that I'm like, wow, I'm blown away. Would have never thought of that. Would have never understood that. I bring my wife back into it really quickly. Because of this whole exercise thing, and she's pushed herself. Like, she ran a 5K. She hates to run. She did it though. And physiologically you change, mentally you change. You begin to see, oh, I can accomplish that. I can accomplish that. So her transformation is to a point now where she's not very fearful of much, which allows her to experience life in a much different way than standing on the corner worrying about whether the bus is going to splash her with a puddle.
Interesting.
Yeah, we have a friend that lives close by that's writing a book. Her name's Betsy Paik. She has this philosophy of whatever you do, start small to live big. And I think that fits so much in transformation, right? Like, there are such things as huge transformations. You can go in and you can get, a facelift and change your whole identity, and people can't recognize you. That can happen in a couple-hour period. But for most transformations, they're gradual, which means they're small bites, right? They are small steps. And then if you're purposeful and intentional to have this transformation where it frees you, then you will live big. From a spiritual standpoint, like you talked about, if you get to a place in your life where spiritually you are fine, no worries, no fears, you know where you're going, your direction, whether you're, a Christian, whether you're Buddhist, whatever it is, you just know like your journey is going to be okay. You have a bit of freedom. So I think that starting small to living big, I think that's really the arc of transformation. Sorry, I don't know if we answer the question the way you wanted it.
Yes, you did, and you sparked a couple of other things for me here, but I just want to also let everybody know that we are at the half-hour mark, and if anyone has, this time flies by really fast, Duane, so there are people who are listening by phone, and if you have a question or a comment for Duane and you can see me, just raise your hand, I'll recognize you. If you are on the phone by any chance, then you want to have a conversation with Duane, just text me at 570-230-4185 and I will recognize you. I'll open your line. There's no way for me to do that that I have figured out yet anyway. So if you have a question or a comment and you're listening by phone, just text 570-230-4185 and I will open your line for you to speak to Duane. So a couple of things that just got sparked. You know, when you talked about going to the edge, I remember back in 2009 or 2010, I was at an event in Las Vegas, and part of the event was we were going zip lining.
Wow. That's on the edge for...
you want to talk about living on the edge, let me tell you. And here's the beauty of this, what I'm going to just tell you. I was in such angst getting ready to do that process of zip lining. I'd watch other people and they were like, hands in the air, so free and loving the experience. And I was like, holy crap, how am I going to do this? Right. So I sat there and I was like, okay, let's count this down. 3, 2, 1. And I was still sitting there. I'm like, what is this about? Why am I still sitting here? But then once I finally decided, and it was simple, it was as simple as like standing up from a chair. Can I just tell you that the feeling was so freeing to let go and to just let the process happen. Before I got to the bottom of that whole thing, I was anticipating the walk to the top again because I wanted to do it again. Hands in the air, like just like totally free and literally flying through the process.
You know, there will be people, congratulations, by the way, because I know that feeling of euphoria and accomplishment, but there will be people that want to compare their transformation to the next person. You know, Facebook, social media, everybody's like, oh, look at their life. And there are people right now that will still say like ziplining, negative, not going to happen. I'm never going to do it. But they don't have to do it. You know, their ziplining might be something totally different. Their ziplining might actually be walking up to somebody at a networking event and saying, you know, hi, my name is Duane. You know, how are you this evening? That might be their, you know, pushing the limits and stepping on the edge. And that's one of the things that happens with adrenaline junkies, right? Is they step on the edge so often that what's the next thing? Well, I guess I'll go to outer space and I'll, you know, skydive down to the planet with no chute or whatever it is. And they just become further and further. Their transformation becomes the bigger arc and further away. If I could get anybody on this call to understand this, it's don't worry about somebody else's transformation. Just worry or just focus on the fact that somebody did it and it's possible. And then you make your own. Right. You know, you right. don't have to compare. None of us have the same fingerprint. No one's ever had the same fingerprint in history, which means we're not supposed to live the same life that somebody else lives. We're supposed to live a life that's uniquely ours. And
exactly.
whatever that transformation means for the person, that's theirs, you know, and whatever the edge means for them, that's their edge.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because once you said that, comparison brings me right to Iyanla Vanzant and a quote that she has, that comparison is an attack on the self. Like,
that's right.
Yeah, it's an attack. We are all individual, created individually on purpose, for purpose, to live a purposeful life. And I think that every single one of us has our own gifts and talents. And yeah, we may have to jump off and go zip lining, or we may have to go into the fire like the pottery, but the fire, from a pottery standpoint, purifies and beautifies the pottery. The first one is purification, getting rid of that which you don't need. And the final firing is putting the color and beautifying the piece. So transformation is something that that I can talk about from many different standpoints, and that's why I love this topic, and that's why Transformational Tuesdays exists. One other thing that you said about getting started, just taking the first step, I think it's Zig Ziglar that said that you don't have to be great to get started, you just have to start to be great.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Those cliches are there for a reason, right? They make sense.
Yeah.
I see a hand up with somebody
Yeah,
there.
I'm going to unmute Miss Barbara Yeager. Hi, Barbara. How are you?
I'm fine, Teresa. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi,
Great to
Barbara.
see you.
California, good morning. I'm doing great. Hey, Duane, this is a really great conversation. Thank you this morning. All this transformation, and we talk about, that sweet spot. I think people feel maybe they're not entitled to feel that. And I like that idea of starting someplace and working backwards. And it is the sweet spot. It's like putting yourself in a position of saying, I could do whatever it is that you want to do. But I think people don't even give themselves the joy of imagining and really thinking about what it is that they would really, do, because they're like, oh, I can, or I shouldn't. We have a lot of, life straitjackets. People wear an awful lot of armor to keep them from getting to a point. And it's horrible because you really can't transform. And I agree totally, Duane, that you got to go to a dark space, and you got to go to that place where you don't know if you can walk off of, if you're going to go off a limb or whatever it is. But you have to know where you're going. You got to be able to feel that sweet spot somehow to say, yep, I want to be there. And that's when you really get to that point of transformation. I think it all starts with the sweet spot, and then you move backwards from there. And there's lots of little things that you can do. And ego holds a lot of us back. But, I always say, just tell your ego you're just being curious. And before you know it, you've already arrived at where you wanted to go just by being curious. And that, you're not rising those fears. But it is very much about that sweet spot, and just allowing yourself to think, I really do deserve this. Or I really deserve this transformation. Or I want this transformation more than anything. And so it's just an amazing process when you do start with the sweet spot.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm glad to hear your voice and you're there on the call, smiling big. I think there are people, though, that don't know what their sweet spot is, right? They're like, I just don't know, because maybe they've been hammered in life into this corner. And so these calls are so imperative to helping people and being surrounded by people. I always say not necessarily like-minded, because I want people to think differently, but like-hearted, like value, like intentional. But you have to get around people like that and be on calls like this so that you can say, I do deserve that. I'm good enough. I'm on this earth to do something, and maybe I don't know what my sweet spot is, but then they will help you start figuring it out with a series of questions like, when do you feel your most joy? When was the last time you felt totally empowered? When was the last time you felt your highest value, your highest sense of self? You start asking those questions, and a lot of times it will take you back to a place where, maybe you were working with children at a school, and somebody says, well, but I don't have the degree to become a teacher. You know what? Get the degree. Go back to school. Well, I don't know if I could do that because I got to take care of my kids and my husband works and we this. If you already know the answer to where you're going to be your happiest and best self, then it's up to you to start taking those steps. And if you don't, I think you're denying yourself. Yeah.
Great point.
Or you haven't chosen the right space. The more resistance you have to say, is the resistance fear, or is the resistance that you haven't really hit the right sweet spot? Because I think you're also right about that service to others and having a heart of service that really leads you to that passion. And finding that sweet spot, because it's almost like we need a reason to do something. And really service is one of the biggest reasons of all, but because it's so transforming. When you transform and light another person's life, there's nothing that feels better, in my estimation, but
Yeah. One of the things that's good to have around is kind of accountability partners or checks and balances to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and reflect on how you are transforming. Because you mentioned about service to others. Believe it or not, there are caregivers out there that actually transform in a negative way because they focus so much on other people and giving to other people that they run out. Their tank runs empty. They stop taking care of themselves. They stop having personal time. They're being of service to others, but they're transforming in a way that when you walk up to them, they're not the same person that you met 3 years ago. They don't have the joy. They don't have freedom. So although that's the side of things we don't want to talk about, there's transformation that's always happening. I think we need people around us that say, hey, are you really watching? Are you paying attention to what direction you're going here? Yeah.
I think you bring up a really good point here, and something that I've been very conscious of is make sure that you fill up your own cup first and give from the overflow, and transform. I don't know if you've seen the thing that's going on Facebook. There's a guy and his dad has Alzheimer's disease, but he comes back to life by the fact that he's a singer. And there's videos of the two of them in the car. He takes his dad in the car and they turn on music, and together they sing things like Quando Quando and some of the things back from way back like in the 50s and whatnot. And it is just so filled with joy. And this, by allowing space for his dad to do what he did so much, that he can still remember, that's in his body. And that's the other thing. That's a whole different conversation about being in the body and letting the head, and particularly where Alzheimer's disease, because this is proof positive that you do not have to be what people label you to be. There are parts of you that are internal, that are connected to who you are inherently. And so when this guy hears the music, he opens his mouth and he belts out a song, and he is so good. His voice is so good. I'm gonna post one on my Facebook page. So, and then from that space of giving to his dad, he finds great joy. His cup is being filled up as well. And so that's really important. And then the gratitude piece comes in that you talked about a little bit earlier. You can go from crying to laughing as a transformation. And in the middle of it, you said something about, there was something that you were crying about. And then as you tell the story later on, you're laughing about it, because there is that gratitude piece that's somewhere in the middle of it.
Yeah. You mentioned about, people.
Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. You mentioned about people not giving themselves the space or the allowing themselves, because they're hard on themselves, they're judging themselves. Can I really do that? Filling their own cup. The problem that most people think that's selfish. They just think, I can't focus on me. Everybody's going to judge me. I really need to focus on other people. The first thing that happens when you get on a plane is they say, right, put your own mask on. Because if you're not good for yourself, you're not good for anyone else around. And you have to get over that belief that, I'm being selfish. You're not being selfish. If you're not at your best emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, you can't be your best for somebody else. Now that's a fine line. It's kind of like confidence and arrogance, being humble and being weak. You have to walk the line of, I'm going to take care of myself so that I can take care of other people. So I can be a good vehicle and a good, for the message. And if people would just free themselves from the idea that I'm not being selfish, I deserve this. I need to take care of me. And not from a get out of my life standpoint, but just from so I can be my best.
Exactly. And I think that's what, especially women, and I'm going to open your line again, Barbara, especially women, I think, they tend, I can speak for myself. I tend to run myself down doing stuff for other people. And I shared this before. My brother-in-law challenged me at one point. Teresa, you've got to stop doing so many things from other people and take care of yourself. You have to learn how to say no. And then he would call me and test me. Teresa, I need this, and this. Can you help me? And I'd say, yeah. And he'd say, no, you have to say no. Because
women are nurturers and caregivers by nature.
Yeah. Barbara.
Well, the other thing is that a lot of people think that you have to give to get. And that's a really difficult thing because, the concept of, well, maybe if I do this, then they'll give this to me. And, you're always waiting for somebody to do something for you or give you something because you just don't think that it's okay just to fill up your own cup and take a drink. That you don't have to give another cup to somebody else before you can fill your own cup. And that's a big thing where people wait an awful long time sometimes for people to come and give them permission to transform or give them the green light to do it. It's like, just decide. And I decided this morning when I woke up, it's almost time for fall, my favorite time of the year. This is going to be the best fall ever. That's my decision.
Yay!
And everything that I do will be focused on that. And that's a small decision. But look at what it can bring. Look what it can bring. Anyway.
Yeah, it can lead to a huge transformation because you take the first step. And so then every fall for the rest of your life could be the next best fall. You will transform it. By the way, if you're making great falls, then what do you think your winter is going to be like? And what do you think your spring is going to be like? So you're moving in that purposeful, intentional direction to make something better. And you'll look back one day and you'll say, wow, I can't believe I was kind of stuck at that point. I'm so glad I freed myself from that, the filling up your own cup. I'm writing a blog that hopefully will go out Thursday about triggers, like emotional triggers, and how you take care of yourself and put yourself in the right mental frame and physical frame, and you like your sweet spots. And that's one thing that people need to really understand when it comes to transformation, because they'll start down this journey, and because it's small incremental change, they don't see enough result instantly. They don't feel like they have momentum. And then a negative trigger comes along and sets them right back to that old habit. And then they lose their transformation and they just feel horrible about themselves, because then they call themselves a failure, and then all the labels come out, and it's that whole cycle. And so one of the things I'm hoping people will get is when you start going off the rail a little bit, what can you do to put yourself back on? And if you've watched any of the Olympics, they're listening to certain songs, right, maybe in their headphones right before they go to perform. They're doing the same rituals that put them in that zone of, mentally they're right, physically they're right, they're eating the right meals, they're doing all these things to put themselves in a place to transform from what was once a kid that was playing on a playground to who is now a world record holding Olympian.
Wow.
And they have to do that to keep themselves on track. They also have coaches that keep themselves on track. They have people around them. So, the journey sometimes. Go ahead.
And they remind them that it's step by step by step. None of the Olympians that we're watching on TV became Olympians overnight.
No.
And that's an important thing, because a lot of times they get discouraged so quickly and they give up too quickly. And, it's really about the process of transformation. And that's the fun part of transformation, is to see where you started and where you ended up. And it could be maybe 3 days or 6 days, or it doesn't really matter. But it is about the process. But there is always a starting point, and then there is your sweet spot. And these people worked a long time. And did you see the guy the other night who lost his entire chance when he had a false start at track?
Yeah.
And he was out in that instance, all that he worked for. And I kind of put myself there and I thought, oh my gosh, how does he feel? Because he got there, he was on the line, he was ready to run it, he had a good chance, and then he had a false start and he was out. And you could think that would have stopped him and completely derailed him. But I have a sense that is just part of his process. It is part of the risk of running. And when you understand that transformation has various risks along the way, that you don't get discouraged if you don't hit that sweet spot right away,
That instance may transform him into being a more humble person and take more advantage of the small opportunities he has in other aspects of his life, like to really value every moment. A lot of people look at the transformation of a caterpillar, or not a caterpillar, into a butterfly, right? And they just see that moment when it becomes the butterfly. They don't look at the whole first growth cycle and then the butterfly's life growth cycle. They only look at the moment of transformation. And I think the beauty is in the whole, series, the whole sequence.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you, Barbara. That was awesome. And the other thing I wanted to say, when you talked about this Olympian that got the false start, I remember seeing, and I don't know the name of the athlete, a runner who was, and this was a few Olympics ago, that was slated to win, and about on the last lap going round, he got he tore a hamstring, I think, and couldn't move. And then, and this is what I want. This is why coaching and having people supporting you is so important. His dad came out and helped him get to the finish line, because no matter what, he wanted to finish. So,
that's one of the videos.
Say that again.
I said that's one of the videos that I have on my YouTube channel. I love that story. It just shows,
Yeah. So there's a question for everybody. Who do you have that will help you cross the finish line in your life? Who's your support team? And who do you want to be associated with? You know, like, do you have a coach? Are you working with someone who can help you to accomplish your transformation? Do you have someone like Duane in your life who holds vision for you and your vision, so that you can achieve whatever that goal is, no matter how small or how large it is? Do you have those people in your life? And that's something to ask yourself. And if you don't have them, ask yourself, why not? And then ask yourself, who would it be possible for me to connect with in order for this to happen? Is it someone who's part of this community? Is it someone who you know who's part of something else you're involved in? You know, so link arms with someone and cross that finish line, because, you know, like Barbara said, they didn't get there on their own. The Olympic athletes did not get there on their own. And Duane, as somebody who has coached many people in soccer throughout your career, those athletes did not get there on their own. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had you as their coach, right?
Yeah, you know, if you look at it like we're all seeds, we all start out as a seed, and we're supposed to grow into something. So if you're supposed to grow into a tree, you know, your purpose is to be a full-grown tree. And along the way, there are other animals that will try to attack you. There are other trees and bushes that will try to take your sunlight and take your nutrients. And there were storms that will come along and knock your branches off. But the inevitable thing is you're supposed to become a tree. And so as humans, we're supposed to become our best self. You know, we're supposed to inspire others, live a full life. We're supposed to, you know, serve and give and interact and communicate. Because if you put a baby in a crib all alone and don't let it communicate, it will, you know, not thrive. You know, it will perish. It won't develop properly. So if you already know that you're supposed to become something bigger and, you know, avail yourself to the world, then don't worry about those small little things. Take the steps, and then one day you're going to look back and be like, wow, look what I've done. Look where I've arrived.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that what you just said is relative not just to that one tree, but to all the trees in the forest. Because, you know, like Marianne Williamson says, personal transformation can and does have a global effect. And as you transform, so too people transform around you. That's my line. Personal transformation can and does have global effect. As we go, so goes the world. For the world is us. And the revolution that will save the world is ultimately a personal one. So with this world being the way that it is today, with so many question marks hovering over us in this country and in the world around us, what part will you play in your own? How will your own transformation impart itself upon this world? So that's a huge question to ask yourself. And if we can look at it from an individual standpoint and know that we are all energetically connected, that somehow what we do is going to affect someone else. And Duane, as you go off to your meeting for the Edge of Kenya, you know, I know that you take the philosophy of one person changes the next, changes the next, changes the next with you. So, you know, I honor you for coming to Transformational Tuesdays. I thank you from the bottom of my heart that you're part of my life and that you decided to come on board today. You talked about this blog. How do people read your blog? How do people get in touch with you? And what's next for Duane Cummings?
DuaneCummings.com is where most people can find anything, whether there's Twitter connections and Facebook connections. I'm on all this social media. That blog will be on my website as well. And what's next is I'm in the middle of lots of transformations that are small incremental steps, and people see me today and they recognize me as the same person they saw yesterday. But 10 years from now, they won't recognize me because I'm really trying to move the needle in the right direction for not only myself, but everyone else on the planet.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And as we just learned that when you do something yourself, you are affecting the planet. So know that we are all connected. And I would like to invite you, I'll make this invitation a public one, with this book that I'm doing, A Gift of Gratitude. Would you contribute a page, 250 words to one of the pages in that book? Would you do that?
What, are you asking me?
Yes.
I'd be honored.
Awesome. Yeah. So for those of you who want to be a part of a book where Duane Cummings is one of the voices that will be heard, and every single one of us has a story of gratitude. So it's a daily gift of gratitude, and I know that gratitude is a big part of your life, Duane. That's why I asked you. and you take that with you wherever you go. And it's my buzzword. It's, you know, when somebody's having a really hard time, the first thing I ask them is, what are you grateful for?
Puts it in perspective in an instant, doesn't it?
In an instant.
Yeah.
What are you grateful for? And so if you want to know more about that, go to yourstorymattersnow.com and see how you can be a part of that. There's a video that's going up on that website today. So it is transforming as we speak. So go ahead there and see how you can be a part of that project as well. And Duane, I can't thank you enough for coming to Transformational Tuesdays. Please keep me updated on what's going on in Kenya. There's a place in my heart for the Kenyan community, as I shared earlier. Oh yeah, look, what's that behind you? Tell me.
Yeah, it's a painting from a local Kenyan artist of some of the kids from the orphanage. So,
wow, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, one person at a time, we can change the world. So, yeah, Kenya's got a special part in my heart. My church is actually partnered with Karakodo, Kenya, and now Tumutumu. They brought water. The kids, it's amazing to me. You want to be an example for transformation for the next generation? Get involved in a project that's bigger than you. The kids in my church raised $25,000 on a weekend event for water in a Kenyan community that didn't have water before. So, you know, be an example for the next generation.
That's right. I'm humbled and honored and grateful to have been included. Hopefully it was transformative for somebody. I know it was for me, because we never just go through life without being affected one way or another, or affecting others. So
yes, indeed. So for those of you who want to know more about Duane, go to DuaneCummings.com, DuaneCummings.com, and read the blog. Get in touch with Duane, social media. He is connected to me as a friend on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. So if you have difficulty locating him, just locate me and you can go ahead and connect him that way. If somebody wants to send you an email, Duane, what's the best way for them to connect with you personally?
Duane at DuaneCummings.com will come to me. Yeah, I'll see it.
Perfect. And for those of you who join me each week on this transformational journey, thank you so much for coming to Transformational Tuesdays. Next week, we'll be talking again about some things that are going on in the community. I'll be presenting next week, so looking forward to that and to all that is to come. And as you travel through what I call the transformational trails of life, enjoy your week, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Teresa. Bye.